Stop writing VBA code and stop hiring developers. I typed one sentence and Claude Cowork built this entire Excel application while I watched. I didn't write any code or enter any formulas. I just told it what I wanted to build. And by the end of this video, you'll have the exact prompt and skill file that I used ready to build and sell any app on your own. It's going to be a great training. Cannot wait. So let's get started. Great to have you here. Thanks so much. This Excel-based application, including VBA, formulas, functions, features, everything was built by AI. I didn't do anything other than enter a prompt. Everything was done for me while I watched. And that means a brand new application just like this. You can create any type of application with what I'm going to share with you today in Excel. And that means even if you've never coded before, you won't have to do any code, any formulas. It's all completely done for you using Claude Cowork. Even if you've never used Claude Cowork, I'm going to walk you through every single step. We're going to go over all of the training. And of course, I'm going to share with you exactly how you can create this by yourself. And of course, I'll make sure you get all the free downloads that enable you to do just this with this skill. So we're going to get started right away. If you're new, please make sure you do get subscribed. I create these trainings each and every week, these comprehensive application builds, downloads, or whatever it is we're sharing. Today, it is Claude Cowork. That's the star of the show. If you have not tried it yet, now is the time to do it because Claude Cowork actually lives on your computer and does the work for you. It's pretty amazing. It can do a lot more than creating Excel apps, but today we're going to focus just on this particular skill, creating Excel applications from A to Z while we watch. In fact, you can go to lunch, and when you come back, your application will be completed. So let's get right into it. We're using Claude Code and Claude Cowork, which is a desktop application. Originally, we just had Claude, which is the chat. And then they came out with Claude Code, which was a desktop application. And now they've added on Claude Cowork, which actually can take over your computer and run applications and actually go in and click, and it can see it, and it can do all sorts of things. And it can basically mimic your behavior on your computer. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is grab the Claude Cowork. Now we can get that directly from its website using the claude.com/download. That is a great link. And inside that website, they have Windows or for Mac, so you can get either one, whatever you're on, you'll be able to get that. Also, this is the exe file. If you want to grab the actual MSIX file, I've got a link for that here, and I'll include that below here. So that is going to be something a little bit different. That is the Claude AI API desktop Win32, and I'll just basically include the link in the downloads. And this is directly a download of the MSIX, and that worked really well for me on my computer. So you're going to get that into the downloads folder before you actually install it. What you want to do is, if you're on Windows 10, perhaps Windows 11, we want to double check a few things. So I'm going to use the Windows R, and that's going to bring up the run command. So Windows key R. And what you want to do is you want to type in optional features. We want to make sure there's certain features that are selected so it will run properly on your Windows. So we're going to click OK. And what that's going to do is going to launch some additional features. So what we want to make sure is we're going to scroll down here. We want to make sure that these two options, the virtual machine platform, and we want to make sure that the Windows hypervisor, both of those are selected. So that's going to be important. That is going to allow Claude Cowork to take over your computer. So we're going to click OK on that. Next up, what you want to do is you want to double click and install it. I've already got it on. Now it does require the Pro plan, but it is well worth the price. It's going to save you hours and hours a day, probably doing all your work for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Claude. Once we do that, you're going to see the interface. Once you get it installed, it's going to look something like this. Now, before you go ahead and start using it, you're going to want to get signed in on the account that you created for Claude. You'll want to just give them your name, an email, or you can use Google to sign on. Once you do that, I want to first, before we actually start using it, we're going to go into the settings. Here, we're going to go into the name and then settings here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the general tab. We want Claude to be able to use our computer, especially for this task. So we're going to check a few settings. We've got run on startup. We also have some quick enters. But more importantly, what we want to do is we want to make sure this one, computer use, we want to make sure that is selected. This lets Claude take screenshots and control your keyboard and mouse and apps. So that's very important because we're going to need it for this task. Now, Claude is really amazing because what it can do is pretty much you can have a chat feature here. So we got a chat. We've got the Cowork feature right here. And we have the Claude code, which is great for code projects. We're going to be focusing on the particular Cowork feature right here. So you want to make sure it says Cowork. If you do not have these 3 tabs available, then you probably don't have the right version of Claude installed. So you want to make sure it is the newest version with that Cowork option. The first few I had tried, the exe file, didn't have this. So keep that in mind. The MSIX file that I downloaded, that did have it in there. And you also want to make sure that we have those 2 options selected in the options to make sure that it does run Cowork. So the idea is Claude Cowork works great when we add additional skills. Now there's tons of skills that are available. And what we want to do is we want to add some brand new skills. So to do that, we can click the customize. And once we customize, we see here we've got connect your apps. So we can let Claude connect apps. We've got lots of skills that we can choose from. So we've got different partners and different skills for themes and document co-authoring. But the greatest thing is that you can actually create your own skills. So if they're not available here, how do you create your own skills? Well, we also have the option to create our new skills here. So if I click create new skills, we're going to go down here. This is all the built-in skills we have. I've got 3 different built-in skills and 1 skill I've added. Now I've created a detailed skill here. So what actually is a skill? A skill is basically a detailed instructions on exactly how to perform an action, right? Our prompt, what we're going to tell it is what we want it to build, but it has to know how to build it. Now I've gone to the trouble of creating a very detailed description of exactly how to build these apps in Excel. And I'm going to share this skill with you. All you need to do is click the link in the description, look for the word download, and I'll make sure that you get the full skill plus maybe a sample app that we've created in a zip file, and I'll be sharing that with you. So here's a description of the skill I created. We're going to use this skill whenever the user wants to build an Excel-based record management application, also called CRUD, C-R-U-D, create, read, update, and delete. And that's exactly what we're going to create. So basically, we're giving it instructions of when it should use this skill. Skills are kept in a markdown file, otherwise known as .md file, and that's the extension. And basically, it can be read by notes. So let's take a look at the one, just a brief look at the one I've created. And this is it right here. Basically, you've got the name of it, Excel. We've got a description of exactly what it is. And then basically we have a detailed list of exactly what to do and how to do it, including all the code, everything it should do from the beginning to end. Regardless of the type of user application that they've requested, this is how it's going to do it and what to run in and the code that's going to create. So everything inside this markdown. And once again, I'll make this markdown file available to you inside a zip file. So once you do have it unzipped in your system, what we want to do is we want to actually bring that into your Claude. We want to give it the necessary skills. All you want to do is just click this plus here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click create a skill. And we already have created it. So we want to upload a skill. Now from wherever you've downloaded it, you simply just need to drag and drop that skill, whatever you download, into this area here, and then you will have it. Remember, it's an MD file. It must contain a skill name and description formatted in a YAML format. It could be a zip file or a .skill file. It must include a skill.md. So it's really looking for a very specific format that it knows how to clearly read. And that's exactly what we've done in this case. So we've created this skill. Once you have that skill, you can then call that skill from any chat. For example, let's go ahead and go back. We'll get out of the customize, and I'm going to stay in this Cowork tab. And if I want to bring up a skill, all I need to do is just type in / and we can look for the skill. We can start typing it in. I've only got a few skills here. So this is the one, Excel CRUD Manager. So I want to add that skill. And now all I simply want to do is assign a specific task, right? We want to give it what is it that we want to build. Now that it has the how, we need to tell it what. So let's go ahead and add a simple prompt of an application that we want to build. So I've got a simple prompt here. I'm just going to paste that right in here. And I'm just going to say, please create a contact manager complete with a contact name, address, city, state, zip, phone, email, contact type, spend amount, refer and notes field. You can put any prompt you want, any application that you wanted, customer manager, contact manager, employee manager, task manager, pretty much whatever you can think of, go ahead and put it in here and it's going to build it. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to simply hit the arrow or control enter, and it's going to automatically start this task. All right, we can see that it is reading the specs and it's running a command and it's thinking here. So it's currently running it and it's going to take just a moment. Okay, after just a few minutes, let's take a look. It says we've got phase A done, now preparing the VBA code, now loading the desktop. Now it's ready to move into phase B or phase 2, which is actually going to take over our desktop and actually do the rest directly from our computer. We just need to make sure to allow it. So I'm going to hit Control Enter or allow this session. Now it's going to get to work directly on my computer, making the second part of those updates. And that means injecting all the VBA code, assigning the macros to buttons, and basically just doing any last minute stuff. So now it's completely taken over my computer. I'm not touching anything and Claude is actually using my computer. Let me bring the window over so that we can actually see what it's doing. And it's loading the desktop tools. After just a few minutes, Claude has now created an XLSX file. It's reopened the file, it's done everything else, it's created it inside the folder in our computer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at it and see what it's created. We actually have a nice file with the background here. It's created the buttons, it's got all the form fields, the list of contacts. We have formulas based on a table that it's created. That's going to generate the row of the selected contact when there is a contact. For example, if we put contact ID 1, it'll generate the row. We also have the next ID. It's already created a brand new table with fake contacts. This table here, the name of it is called contacts. And now what we're going to do is we're going to let it take over. It's going to now convert it to an XLSM file and inject all the macros that it's actually created. So let's go ahead and let it take over and do just that. So the first thing what it's going to do, it's going to automatically save it as an XLSM file. That's going to allow us to inject those macros. So that's what it's doing now as an XLSM file. It's now macro enabled. Next up, what we want to do is want to have a Claude code, make sure that it's going to update. It's going to go into VBA as we can see here, and it's going to change the name of the sheet. So those code names, the same sheet names that used inside the code, it's now going to update that. So we see contacts database, and next up, it's going to insert an actual module to add to the code. So here's where it's going to copy and paste the code that it's already created. So it's copying and pasting the code inside the module, and that's going to include the same for whether we're updating, adding new contacts, or just about anything. We see that it says the name field, the selected contact. It's going to add a name to that module so we can clearly see it. And now we take a look and see what it's doing. It is now going to update the additional features. So we do need some workbook code, which it's going to paste in right now. And this workbook code is going to get it set up for the buttons. It's going to assign the macros to the buttons. And also that selection change event. As we see the worksheet, it's going to paste in that code. So that's it. It's pretty much it. That's all it needs to do. It's going to hide those columns A and B. They don't need to be visible. It's now completed all the coding in the entire application. The contact manager title is at the top. We've got 3 new buttons for add new, save, update, and we have delete. We've got all the form fields, contact name, and all the fields. The names list has been populated. We have the background image, and columns A and B have been hidden. So let's take a look at that. We'll reduce the code and we'll see what we have. We now have a selection change event. We can select any contact and it's automatically going to appear. We also have a new contact. We can simply add a new contact by typing in the name and then just clicking save or update. If I want to update an existing contact, I can do this right here just by putting in the street, and it will save or update the existing contact. So we see that updates. We can actually delete any contact. If I select delete, we can delete it and it's going to be removed from the list. This is a really cool training. Claude Cowork actually built the entire application from a simple prompt where we just wanted to create a contact manager. It did all the coding, all the design, all the buttons, and all the functionality in two different phases, one with the code inside an XLSX, and then it converted it to an XLSM, and then it added the code, and then it made it fully functional, tying those macros to the button, including a selection change event. This has been a really epic training. Thank you so much. I'll make sure the full skill is inside a zip file along with the sample workbook so you can see both and how it created and get into the code if you want. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, I've got a really amazing AI tool pack. I've got 12 different functions in this incredible add-on. It goes with every single workbook. It's going to save you tons of time, and it's really amazing whether you're doing coding, whether you're working on formulas, or whether you're just trying to clean and optimize data. It does it all. Don't forget, that's the AI tool pack. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.